Good evening, Gearheads. Welcome to your Sunday night with Speed City. We are doing our last show of 2024, and we've got a lot of Formula One to talk about. Of course, some big news this week. We'll talk all about that, including the 2025 Formula One grid is completely set. We'll talk all about that.
For now.
Yeah.
Watch this
Don't
space.
bother me with details, Jonathan. This
Okay.
is as of today.
As of today.
Yeah. And we have a really interesting, we're going to talk about, obviously, Checo Perez and Liam Lawson, but we're also going to have an interesting discussion about the argument for why Liam Lawson will be successful at Red Bull Racing, because all I've been hearing is why he won't be successful and why another Max Verstappen teammate will fall. But we're going to have a discussion about why he will be successful, not necessarily saying that we know he will or think he will, but the argument for that. But we are going to start with Checo Perez because this week it was official on Wednesday. I know it was Wednesday because Chris and I were about to do wheel-to-wheel when it was announced, and Checo Perez will not drive for Red Bull in 2025 and the next day it was announced he was being replaced by Liam Lawson. But I want to start with Checo because, look, he's had an amazing career, right? He's a beloved figure in our sport.
Yeah.
And he deserves it. Don't you agree?
I totally agree. And he's one of the nicest men you could ever come across when it comes to doing our side of it, which is the interviews and so on. He's always been straight up. He's always been polite. He's always been as honest as he can be, sometimes to his detriment, I think. And that's part of the equation, I'm sure. He needed to really take it to Max, and he needed to probably get his elbows out a bit. And we saw a bit of it with, ironically, Lawson in the last few races and a few others, where, he was kind of fed up with it all and knew he was on the way out. And, we saw the reignition of the early days of Perez. Because, remember some of those wheel-to-wheel moments at Racing Point with the two pink cars of him and Ocon? Wow. Those were big moments.
I don't know how many times they came together, but it was...
Well, if you remember, they were going to try and fire one of them because it was like, hey, calm down the hell.
We can't keep doing this. Yeah.
But no, he's a scholar and a gentleman, as we like to say in England. But it was time. With the form guide, it was unsustainable. It's as simple as that. I'd love to see him come back. Ricardo, got his mojo back to a certain extent, but I think he's realized now that it's gone. And once that, it's the same with any top athlete, whether it be Tom Brady, whether it be a tennis player like Federer. Once you realize that your body is either slowing down, which is a natural effect. Even Lewis has admitted that. But the experience, it's like a Jordan. The experience is what gets you to the level that you were at. Because Lindsey Vohn's making a comeback to skiing.
Yeah.
She's 40, but she's in the US ski team.
Wow.
That's what I'm getting at. Is that some people can, some people can't.
Well, and I like the things that Christian Horner said about Checo. Basically, one of them was it's the most successful driver pairing. They've never had a 1-2 before like they did last year.
Yep.
And he talked to, and the constructors championship contributions in prior years, and look, let's face it, everybody talked about the contract. They criticized for the contract. He was doing great up until he got the contract right before then, and then it fell off a cliff. So
I think the biggest story is how Red Bull have badly managed all of it. By offering him a contract in June in the hope that would see him psychologically, get his edge back. But it did the opposite in some ways. And now he's walked away with 60 million, which is also egg on face for Red Bull, even though they can afford it.
Yeah. Look, in Formula One, that's not a lot of money for the team. But,
no,
I say that. On one hand, with the cost cap, it is a lot of money these days. So
yeah, it's not good business sense to your Oracle sponsors, is it?
Yeah. Exactly.
And also,
that's a good point.
Yeah, and it's also, there were stories of how, other sponsors were in with a bit like Sainz with Santander. They were in with Checo, and so they were like, "Look, if Checo's got the contract, we're with you. If he hasn't,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, I wanted to start with Checo, just because I know we touched on it last week, but now that it's official, I just wanted to say that I thought, he's been a fantastic teammate. He's been fun to watch. When he first moved to Red Bull, it was like, yes, this guy who's been on a team that couldn't deliver a win for him, and he got his wins. He got how many wins with Red Bull? 5?
5, I think.
I think 6 overall.
Yeah, so. And you remember, he's driven for Racing Point, as I mentioned. He's driven for McLaren. He's had a solid
Started
career.
at Sauber, right? Way back in 11 or something like that? Yeah.
He's had a solid career. The real loss to Formula One is the fandom. He has a huge following. I mean, actually tantamount to Max's, no, that's not fair, but not far off.
I think especially considering that Checo's never been, a champion. I think the number of fans is enormous.
The vitriol, though, man, about wanting Yuki and wanting to keep Checo, people have been getting. I love it when people get passionate. It's great.
Yeah,
but a lot of hard feelings. I know what camp I'm in, and I'm in for personal reasons and for professional reasons.
Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about Tsunoda now before we move on to Liam Lawson. We got a lot to talk about Liam Lawson, but I mean, Tsunoda has every right to be cranky about this, right?
Yep.
He made the claim that his that he had destroyed his teammates, I believe was the quote he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not true overall because
he beaten him, but
like Gasly actually head to head with Tsunoda was better.
Yeah, I tell you what, one of the stats we're going to discuss later is a very interesting one. Yes, Tsunoda outqualified Lawson in all 6 races, but Tsunoda finished further down than he qualified in most of those races. Meanwhile, Lawson, at one point, getting double digits, always improved.
Yeah, and ultimately, at the end of the season, Lawson 6 points, Tsunoda 8, so it's pretty close there.
Yeah. And also, remember Austin, he started at the back with an engine change that Ricciardo took. And so he started from the back and still got in the points. That was a drive and a half.
I know. And we'll talk about Lawson, but just to finish up with Tsunoda.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all right. It's the Tsunoda versus De Vries. Tsunoda beat him pretty handily across the board, right?
Yep.
As far as like faster in qualifying, finished ahead of him. Laps ahead. There wasn't a huge number of races to do that one,
and it's amazing actually because De Vries, when you look at his record, should have been a shoo-in.
Yeah,
because he's a world champion in his own right. In Formula E, he was untouchable for a while, and he's still right at the top of his game. He's a very, very good racing driver, and you see him in WEC, and I mean he's on top of it.
Yeah, and we've got some clips from our interview we did with Liam Lawson, sorry. And we did it last year, but we got some great clips of him that we're going to play later in the show that he talks about exactly that angle on it. But as far as like what drivers, how they're coming up through and how they struggle when they reach a certain level. But as far as other head-to-head, I think that you'd have to say that Tsunoda did better overall, but he didn't destroy them. That was the ultimate point that I was making there.
Yeah.
All right, so one other thing that I want to talk about.
Do you think Yuki should have got the nod?
No.
Why?
Because of the intangibles with Lawson. And it's funny, I saw a few polls, and I thought, I wonder what everyone else is thinking. And I saw 2 polls online, and both of them were in the low 50% Lawson over Tsunoda. Yeah.
My feeling is it's a bit like coming in as on loan. In other words, for a franchise in American football. If you come in as a star quarterback from the Dallas Cowboys and you're sent to the Jets because Aaron's injured, right? Great. And you do a hell of a job, but you're never one of the Jets, are you? You're a Dallas Cowboy who's helping out the team.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of how Yuki got kind of missed in the mix, is that they never saw him as a junior driver. And because Helmut cares so much about the Red Bull Driver Academy / Red Bull Juniors, his focus, and wrong or rightly, I mean, this is where a lot of the Ricciardo stuff in. If you remember, Helmut didn't want Ricciardo back in the car. He didn't care about his mojo. He wanted to bring a junior in straight away. He wanted to replace Ricciardo at Monaco, probably with Lawson. And that's why Tsunoda wasn't even in the equation.
Yeah.
Because he's a Honda driver, and they'd already been let down by Honda.
Right. And obviously that had to play into this equation, the Honda part of this, the fact that he's a Honda driver. Honda has now signed with Aston Martin, to provide their power units from 26 on. So, I mean, how much do you think that played? I think it played a lot.
Yeah. The flip side to what I just said, though, was here's a guy with 4 years experience in Formula One, driving in Formula One at every Grand Prix, albeit in a secondary car. who could be very fast very quickly in a Red Bull, and he proved that in the test that he got. And instead, you're throwing the least experienced Formula One driver into his first rookie season alongside the 4-time world champion.
Yeah, but you know what? You asked me why, Lawson, and I'm going to tell you after the break, but it has straight to do with that. So let's get a quick break in now, and we'll talk all about Liam Lawson right after this. All right. Let's see who we're checking in with. Got Ray streaming from Charlotte. Hey, Ray. And Kevin Kelly from BB Antioch. How do you say that, Kevin? He says, sorry he's late. We're going to dock your pay, Kevin. Everybody getting ready for Christmas? Yeah, there you go. Show everybody on YouTube that. Which camera are you?
This one.
There.
Look what I got. I got a golf leading collar for my dog. Oh yeah, Steve McQueen. Can you imagine him and me in my jacket? I've got my golf jacket.
Oh yeah, your golf jacket. Yeah, that's it. That would be perfect.
Oh, that is styling, buddy. That is styling.
I was doing the death scroll. I think it was actually Instagram, which I'm trying to use more, and I saw that, and I said, I got to get that for Greeny's Dougie. All right, coming back.
I'm Liam Lawson, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Thank you, Liam, for bringing us back.
Go see John.
So we're going to talk exactly about Liam Lawson and as why we think that Red Bull decided to go with him. And you asked me right before the break why I thought, and I think, number one, I think it's his mental strength. And when you see him, he's kind of like you hear the phrase, the it factor, right?
Yep.
The it factor, and you can almost just feel it when you meet someone.
Yeah.
And Lawson is that way. And I know you've met Liam Lawson when he was like 15 years old or something like that.
Yep.
I think that more than anything else, clearly he's fast. He's been, his career's accomplished, but we're also trying to judge him. Like I was reading stats in the previous segment about how Tsunoda went head to head with everybody, but Liam Lawson hasn't been, he just turned 22. He's only had 11 races in Formula One. And the way he handled himself against Fernando Alonso and against Checo head to head and against Hamilton and so many drives, so many intense battles already in his short career.
Yeah, I think that's it. He's gone toe to toe with Alonso. I actually saw him in Vegas and gave him a hug because, like I said, we're mates. But I alluded to, I didn't start talking about his best result. I said what you did in the rain for the last 12 laps of Sao Paulo. In 10th place, holding on to the last point with Hamilton right behind you, trying every which way. That, and he kind of rolled his eyes because he knew what I was talking about. And I think that's where you see the fortitude. That's where you see the mental acuity and absolute, not being intimidated by a 7-time world champion in the wet, in ridiculous conditions where people like Colapinto and everybody else were slip sliding, Stroll didn't even make the bloody start.
Yeah.
I mean, so for what he did in that race, bloody marvelous. And I agree with you, it is the mental fortitude. And I think that's what Red Bull really put this down to. No, he hasn't outperformed Yuki Tsunoda, but why would he after Tsunoda's got 4 years in the car and he's got a couple of races, all of which came as thrown him in the car, including Austin, where he was given a penalty grid and had to start at the back. So, he's had a baptism of fire, but let's look at the real story. They invested in him on his 16th birthday. He signed the contract, and he's been at the team.
You were there.
I was there. Yuki hasn't been with the team. He's been with RB, and that is a separate team.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've got
Better be.
Yeah, I've got an interesting remark by the head of RB on Lawson as well. But bottom line is he has figured out who Lawson is. He's watched the whole Perez decline. He's obviously not in a position to do anything, say anything, except be ready when asked. I think Red Bull finally realized that bringing Yuki in, or even Colapinto, because there was a thought, or any other experienced driver, just kind of ruins the whole point of being a Red Bull junior, and would probably unattract the likes of Hadjar, who's now got the drive, and anybody else, whether it be Arvin Limbad, who we're going to talk about later, or anybody else coming through. If you don't have a feeder series that gets, feeder academy stroke program that gets you somebody to Formula One, then there's no point.
Yeah.
Doing a good example as well at Alpine. They've got him into Formula One.
Well, I want to go to this clip of Liam Lawson, and this is him talking about Super Formula, and I heard this today, and I grabbed it. I was going back and listening to the old interview, and I thought, this is really a fascinating concept of how he thinks maybe this was the secret sauce that allowed him to have this presence and this ability that he's got right now. So let's hear this. It's about 4 or 5 minutes of Liam Lawson. Hey, Liam, I want to ask you about your path to Super Formula in Japan. I mean, it's a highly respected championship, got plenty of super license points, but what was your decision to end up there?
I think it's because of basically with the way Formula One is right now and the way the system is to get to Formula One, with the super license points, you're really forced to do F3 and F2 because they host the most amount of points. You know, if you finish top 3 in F2, you automatically have a super license. Whereas championships outside of Formula One, outside of the ladder system, I guess, that like Super Formula, like IndyCar, like other championships get a lot less points.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot more people would go to Super Formula because of how good the car is. I mean, the car is very similar to Formula One. So in terms of preparing as a driver to drive in Formula One, it's a much better thing to be doing than Formula 2, and something that I've now learned that by doing it. So, but there's just not that many super license points available, so it's a big risk. But fortunately for me, because I have the super license from the last couple of years of F2, it means I don't have the pressure of going to Super Formula and having to finish in the top 2 or win the championship to basically have a shot at F1. Obviously that's the goal, but that's why a lot less people, I would say, go and do it because of that reason, basically. So, and for us, because I had the super license, it was like, rather than doing a third season of F2, I'm not going to learn anything really doing that. And with the way Formula 2 is right now, it's really hard to get the right shot, I guess, to be fighting for a championship. So it was a perfect opportunity to go to Japan and drive a faster car with a team that's closer to Formula 1 working level.
I don't get to see much of Super Formula, and I'm intrigued by it, being in Japan.
It's a fast car.
Yeah, it's clearly a fast car and clearly respected with the not as many super license points as Formula 2. But Liam, talk about the difference and what's it like in Super Formula and being in Japan like that?
So, I mean, first of all, the competition is quite high, especially because the guys there have done a lot of seasons. They're really, really experienced drivers. My teammate has done, I think, more than 10 seasons now of Super Formula. So, really, really experienced. So they just don't make mistakes, especially in qualifying. They're really good at delivering laps. They only drive on their circuits. So you have to be really, really accurate, and you can't afford to slip up. So, and then obviously the car is extremely fast. It's the downforce is just a lot higher. I think the aero is a lot higher than Formula 2 and what I've been racing in the past. But also the setup work, what we're changing is a lot, relates a lot more to Formula 1 as well with the setup work we're doing, the focus on aero and trying to be efficient with it. Rider height control, things like that. It's super, super fine margins, which I'm not used to. And it's also basically what you're working on in F1. So, and then as before, you got Toyota versus Honda, so you got two manufacturers, I guess, pushing against each other. And it's quite cool to have something to sort of develop, be a part of developing a car that's not super, super fixed, as well, like I'm used to. So obviously Formula 1 will always be the pinnacle by a long shot, but this does feel a lot closer, and it does feel like I'm learning a lot more towards that.
Really interesting.
Isn't this interesting, though? He talks about how the drivers are, the whole championship, Super Formula, is a much higher level than Formula 2. More experienced drivers, more downforce in the car, and it prepared him. He had the luxury. He already had the super license points in the bag, so he had the luxury of going to Super Formula and competing at a high level of competition, a high level of downforce, and maybe this is going to give him that what it takes to succeed quickly in Formula One.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny. I've just got a list up here because I used to do the commentary for Formula Nippon, as it was called then.
Same series.
Same series. It just changed its name to Super Formula. But it's been obviously a Japanese-dominated sport. But there have been some notable international drivers that have made and cut their teeth there. Nick Cassidy, world champion in Formula E, another Kiwi, funnily enough. Andre Lotterer, a world champion at WEC. Loic Duval, world champion in WEC. Richard Lyons, you may not know as well, Ralph Furman, Tom Coronel, Ralph Schumacher, another one. My point is, there's a lot of guys, Gasly more recently, you know, and obviously Liam Lawson. The point is, I think there's a combination there of the car that he just described, but I think the biggest culture shock is the Japanese love motorsport more than probably any other country in the world in terms of their passion. And so when you're in Super Formula, you may as well be in Formula One because the crowds that Jan Mardenborough, another one, but the crowds that form for your autograph sessions are miles long. And I mean, you are on billboards in Tokyo. But the flip side of that is you're a long way from wherever your home is. You don't understand the language. You don't understand the culture. You may not fit in with the food and everything else. So it is a huge gamble. And if you can get through that, which all of those guys I just mentioned, Pedro de la Rosa was another one. But if you can get through that, I haven't mentioned the Japanese ones. But you know what I'm saying? And that's why it's another reason why on the flip side, not many Japanese have made it this side of the pond, as it were, the other side of the world. Yuki being one of the rare exceptions, and I knew he would be because he went to England at a young age. He also did the Toyota series and stuff like that. So he didn't grow up racing in Japan. He grew up racing around the world, and that's why he's made it in Formula One, whereas the likes of Nakajima and a few others who got there through Formula Nippon maybe didn't make it as well. Bottom line is, this is a great series, and I would finish off by saying, if that's what you think of the Formula 2 versus Formula 3, you need Formula 2 to get your super license points. But the icing on the cake is great. Get to the top 5, just like Jack Crawford has done in Formula 2. And when the road is blocked and you are a reserve driver for Aston Martin and there's no racing to be had, go to Japan.
Yeah. Now, a couple things. You mentioned Nick Cassidy, another Kiwi. He mentions in this interview, or immediately after I clipped that, he talks about if it hadn't been for Nick Cassidy, he wouldn't have even thought of Super Formula, wouldn't have done it. And number 2, you talk about the crowds. He mentions that in the same article, the same interview, where he says, you know, I can go to Formula 2 with nobody in the stands, or I can go to Super Formula with 50,000 people in the stands.
Well,
and you know, it's a huge series, like you were saying. The crowd gets into it.
Funnily enough, that their stories are so parallel. Cassidy and Lawson, just 10 years apart. Cassidy did everything in the Toyota series in New Zealand, just like that. His parents had no money. His parents worked in the hospitality, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind me explaining that. Hospitality at the Toyota Racing Series to pay for him to go to Japan. He went to Macau as a one-off. Didn't do Formula 3. Went to Macau, got on the podium there and got noticed and didn't have the money. So they both had a very parallel rise up through the ranks.
Well, Liam Lawson, his parents sold their house so he could keep racing.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it reminds me of Ryan Sheehan here in Austin. His dad and mom are not wealthy, and they're doing whatever it takes and trying to find a place for him in the world.
And by the way, they found one. He's going to be racing in Europe in sports cars in Ligiers next year.
Yeah, and they're still looking for money. So
yeah, absolutely. And if you
want great, fantastic race driver that Ryan is, and completely dedicated and passionate about what he's trying to do. It's a great story.
Yeah, and if you are listening and you're into motor racing and you think, oh, I could never be involved in this, don't think that.
Yeah.
Jet Bowling, whose hat I'm wearing, he's flying the flag for Texas.
Yeah.
In the Toyota Racing Series, I'll be going down in a couple of weeks. And there's many others. Ryan Sheehan's just one of several drivers. Titus Sherlock. There's so many young Texans coming through now.
All right, a couple more things to button up on Liam Lawson, and that is Christian Horner talking about something. He said he's talking about one of the reasons that he went with Lawson over Tsunoda. He says, and he drives the car in a similar fashion to Max. He doesn't shy away from having a very positive front end of the car, right? A very sharp, quick reacting front end of the car. And we were talking about this before we went on the air. You were saying basically, well, you can set up the car however you want for each driver. And I guess my response is maybe there's only so much you can do to the car after you build it. If you're going to have to build it with somebody in mind, you're obviously going to build it with Max in mind. But I thought that was an interesting take. And then lastly, I want to play another clip from Liam Lawson early in this interview that we just did. And by the way, we'll put the link out to that interview because it's it's like 40 minutes with Liam Lawson last year.
Yeah,
right?
Let's put it out again.
Yeah, we can put that out again.
Get to know him.
Yeah, exactly. Get to know Liam Lawson. But here's a clip with him when we ask him about racing against Max Verstappen.
Is Max the phenomenon we as journalists kind of, purvey him as? The results show that. But he has got almost a Senna-like mystique about him, about the way he goes about it. But are you amazed at his abilities, or is it just he's just very good?
No, it is very impressive, to be fair. It is very impressive to watch. He's basically just in a situation where he's incredibly comfortable with the car. So, yeah, he's incredibly comfortable in the car that he's in. And he's very, very good, because you think of how big the Formula One operation is, how much information they get from all different directions and what they're trying to work out what is important to take and to work on and what's not important. And Max seems to be very, very good at going, if they focus on something and he goes, you know what, this is pointless, let's just do this, or something like that. He's very good at pinpointing exactly what needs to be worked on, and he won't waste time on something that's not sort of going to be beneficial. And I think he's able to work that out quite. And obviously then he's extremely fast, doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah, I love what he said about how Max filters what's not important, because I was just, we're trying to grow Speed City. I've been thinking a lot about the business side of what we do, and I was watching Kevin O'Leary on LinkedIn, of all places, and he said the number one thing about successful versus unsuccessful is exactly what he just said about Max Verstappen, is staying focused on what's important. Don't, busy yourself with things that are not. And that's exactly what Liam Lawson just said, that what makes Max Verstappen great. And I completely understand that and believe that. I just put the link in the YouTube.
That's how I won the schoolyard marbles contest back when I was 5.
You were totally focused.
Totally focused, man. I clean my marbles every night.
Is that a euphemism?
No.
All right, on that note, we're going to take a break.
Uh-oh. Party foul.
We got lots more Formula One right after this. Hey, Greenie. So yes, now we can say whatever we want. We're on YouTube. So I got your dog something, kind of just a fun gift, but I got you something really serious and extremely important. And I know this is how, something important to you. And I hope you don't feel like I've overstepped my bounds by buying you such a gift. But I got you
Why am I
something that you're going to cherish more
the
than
F1 calendar?
No.
Album?
It's the F1 sticker collection. It's the official F1.
Oh my word!
It is thick. I don't know how many
Murphy,
stickers.
we are not worthy. We've got a whole
It
Christmas.
has 156 Formula One stickers. Nobody loves stickers more than you. Merry Christmas.
God. Official collection. Oh, that's made up. Oh, that's great. I didn't bring yours. I'll get it to you tomorrow.
Don't worry about it. That's the one that I was just. In fact, I clicked it and I was like, "Oh, that is so cool!" And I knew you love stickers.
156 stickers, including 66 foil stickers and 10 times Kiss Cut car stickers and a 40-page sticker album.
All right, here we go.
Jet Bowling, if you need some stickers on the car.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're on our last show of 2024, getting ready for Christmas. Got one more day of official work, and then I am going to relax until January 2nd, doing nothing but hanging with the family. I'm assuming you're doing similar.
Yeah, I'm going to be boiled in a bath in New Zealand.
Well, but when do you go?
28th.
Oh my gosh, that's
I'm
right.
on New Year's Day. I'm going to be boiled in a bath, and then.
I have our other official.
Oh, good.
Our equipment that you need.
I will document it verily.
Yes.
So, just before we go on, I just want to go back one step because I did notice something that I thought was really interesting, following on from my Super Formula chat or our chat. Straight after the Abu Dhabi test, they had a Super Formula test in Japan. And it was interesting to see who took part in that. And I noticed that Igor Fragar, a Brazilian driver who grew up with a Japanese mother, and he's another one that started off in gaming. But he did really well against Lawson. He went head-to-head with Lawson for the championship in 19 in Toyota. He was fastest on one of the days. But the one that really interested me was Oliver Rasmussen and Oliver Behrman, who both took part as rookies, so they didn't know the car. And as Lawson said, there's guys that have been driving it forever. But look where they finished, 15th and 16th. Behrman 16th, behind Rasmussen. So we're all saying, wow, Ollie Behrman, he's only 16th fastest.
In Super Formula.
In a test. Now, okay, that would take time, and over a season he'd get better. Juan Manuel Correa actually was in that test, 27th. He's a Formula 2 driver. So,
How do you watch Super Formula?
You watch it online, actually.
Not that I have the time.
There is there is English coverage online. You can watch it. It's been a passion of mine. I used to do it, like I said, for Sky for a motorsports program once every other week, and that's how we got it out in the UK. But it really doesn't get the coverage it deserves.
Yeah,
and there's some fantastic talent, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ayo Katsuma from Haas probably started out. His days.
Komatsu, yeah. Well, that's going to be fun. I really want to see how that Lawson story plays out. But we have a really fun segment that we're going to do here because we're going to talk about 24 stats, one on every driver from the 2024 F1 season. And I'm just going to do it in the order, starting with Max, most points down. And you can jump in here too. You can click the link, but the one on Max Verstappen says he never finished in the top 6, where his teammate Checo Perez failed to break the top 6 on 17 occasions. Pretty amazing considering that Max...
And he led twice as many laps as anybody else, right?
Yes, that's right. His number of laps was 500 and something laps, twice
60,
as many.
560.
Yeah. And
double what anybody else got.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Lando Norris, the worst starter of the year, who averaged one losing place on the start of every 2 races on average.
To be honest, that's where he lost the world championship because that means he qualified on the front row or pole and then gave it away. And on half of the occasions he had the chance.
And as we go through this, if you're watching on YouTube and you think of a stat that I missed here, I'm just grabbing one stat for each driver.
So, Piastri completed all the laps.
Yes. Now that one was probably in fact, that may have inspired me to think about this. I looked up that stat. So I said, did he get that stat? And sure enough, and this, by the way, I got inspiration from Keith Collentine at racefans.net.
Yes, who is a good friend. I've done some commentary with
great
him.
Website if you don't follow
really
that.
Good guy. I tell you what, I'd love to write a series of books called "What If," i.e., in sport. What if you were the backup to Tom Brady in their first season? What if you were? Well, one of this is, what if you were Logan Sargent and instead of going to Williams, you went to the far more reliable McLaren of 2024 and did what Piastri did, which is get 1,444 laps in. It might have been a different Logan Sargent than the one that probably got less than 1,000 laps in because he was crashing a car that wasn't competitive.
Okay, I got a great stat. It's not this list, but I remember it. Williams had 17 points this year, 17 crashes also.
Ugh.
How about that for a crazy coincidental stat?
Okay,
Charles Leclerc, here's stat. The end of his season was so strong that if you were to start every driver at 0 after the summer break, right, start over, hit the reset, and run a mini 10-race championship, Leclerc would have won ahead of Norris and Verstappen.
Wow.
How's that for a good finish to a season?
I like that.
That bodes well for a Leclerc-Hamilton next year.
Well, talking next year, yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah.
I'm going to be a complete nerd when it comes to every sector time between those two. Because to me, that is a battle royale, whether they're 7th in the championship or fighting for the title. The head-to-head between those two drivers, one who's not got a world title and one who has 7, is going to be really fascinating because given where they are in their careers, I would put them at dead equal in that Ferrari for the simple reason, well, if not Charles ahead, because of the fact that he knows the car. This is going to be a real mountain for Hamilton, and it's going to push him, and it's going to push his buttons, and he ain't going to like.
Oh, he's looking forward to this. You know, he's such a competitor, right?
Right, but he's not going to like it when he gets beaten by a 10th or 2/10 by Leclerc.
Yeah. All right, Carlos Sainz is the next one. Ferrari was the only team to take pole positions with both cars, thanks to Carlos Sainz being the only driver to take a single pole position. He only took one, but he secured the fact that the only team to take both. George Russell, across sprint qualifying and Grand Prix qualifying combined, Russell beat Hamilton 24-6 this year.
Wow, that says a lot.
No other teammate of Hamilton has beaten him like that.
And I don't think we put George Russell in the same rarefied air as we do some other drivers. I really think what he's achieved against Hamilton.
He hasn't gotten that.
No, I mean, Hamilton's at the top of his game, and he's about to go to the World Championship. Winning second in the championship. Ferrari could have been championship constructors, and so therefore you could argue that he's just doing a side move from Mercedes at the right time, as he did when he joined the team from McLaren when they were at the top. As they are again now. But that was the smooth move that Hamilton did, and no one thought was the right move. But he's done it again, and we'll see if it actually pans out.
Yeah.
But it really does make it interesting that George has basically taken him to the cleaners in equal machinery.
Yeah, because if you were to stop after all what you just said, if you were to stop and said, who's better, Leclerc or Russell, your instinct, probably most people would have said Leclerc, but you don't know that. I mean, Russell...
Oh, he's better than, I think...
Yeah, then he's getting credit for because the Mercedes car just hasn't been consistent.
I mean, think about it.
This last 2 years.
Vegas, he took the pole
and
didn't look back. I mean, it was immaculate. Talk about King George. That was amazing.
All right, next on the list, Lewis Hamilton. Here's a positive stat, by the way. Of all the drivers who entered every race, Lewis Hamilton averaged... with an average of 2.26 per race, most places gained in Grand Prix. So, of all the drivers who entered every single race, so 2.26. That's pretty good, right?
Yep.
All right, Checo. Unfortunately, there was lots and lots of bad stats about Checo, and I mean...
Well, we've heard them, and that's the thing.
We really have, and I don't want to dwell on any of that. I mean, I'm just going to stick to what I said earlier. He was great for the sport, great teammate, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Can I go on, finish on a positive?
Sure.
The one guy who's left out in the cold, besides Bottas, but he's got a reserve drive, is Guan Yu Zhou.
Yeah.
And I really picked up on the stat that he is now, looking to try and get the Ferrari, reserve driver. And he finished higher than he qualified 17 times.
Yes.
More than any other driver.
Do you know what going out of order does to someone like me?
Oh, no. I've done it, haven't I?
I had to scroll all the way down to show Guan Yu.
Oh, no.
Okay, here we go. Where were we?
Do you want your stickers back?
Okay. No, I'm going to take one Zhou Guan Yu sticker from you for that.
No!
Okay, next on the list, Fernando Alonso. After the drivers in one of the top 4 teams, and to take those guys out, Fernando was the first to flag more times than anyone, racking up 8 of the best of the rest finishes. Right, if you take everybody else out, best of the rest, racking up 8 of those. So
you see, I thought you were wrapping up, and so I wanted to say he won't have noticed that one.
No, that's true. Pierre Gasly, this one went all around the internet. I think right before the last race, because we were afraid had 0 crash damage in 2024.
Wow!
And I put with an asterisk because he did come together, but
with Ocon probably.
With Ocon,
yes.
But none of the crash damage was attributed to him.
Wow.
So technically, 0 crash damage for Pierre Gasly. That's a pretty cool
And their
stat.
Qualifying battle was 12-11.
Yep. And then we talked about Alonso a second ago. Hülkenberg is my next stat. He had the second most best of the rest finishes. Obviously had a great season. Fantastic. Yuki Tsunoda lost the most places of any driver during races with an average finish of 1.7 places lower than he qualified.
Can I change your order again?
Sure, why not?
You missed out.
You've already ruined it, everything, so just go ahead.
I've ruined Christmas.
You've ruined Christmas. Exactly.
The one that really stood out to me, and we've pointed at this several times, but Lance Stroll, out of all the drivers who raced a full season, Lance Stroll continued the lowest share in team score, 25.5%, 0.3 less than Perez at Red Bull.
Yeah, we talk about the disaster that Checo had. Well, so did Lance.
If you weren't looking at Stroll in a different light because of the obvious, you would say, well, if Perez is out, why isn't Stroll?
Yeah.
And why isn't Jack Crawford, America, in?
Yeah. By the way, that was actually in order. It was just down the next page.
Wow.
Okay, the next one is this one.
Wow, I got it right. Yeah. My OCD's on.
Exactly. Ocon is the next. Thanks to his podium finish at Brazil, Esteban Ocon was the only driver outside the big four teams to lead a lap or finish in the top two. It's okay. It's a little esoteric, but that's Ocon.
I like it.
Yep. Magnussen had a great year, in my opinion. The best driver at making up places on lap one was Kevin Magnussen, who picked up an average of one. Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You hear that stat and you go, yeah, that's Magnussen. He picked up 1.33 places at the start per race.
Yeah.
Knew that was good. Albon, of all the drivers who entered every round, Alex Albon covered the fewest laps, 1,139 laps. That's an auspicious stat. But speaking of auspicious stats, Daniel Ricciardo was the worst starter on the grid, losing 0.82 places per race on average. Ollie Behrman, in his two appearances for Haas, he out-qualified and finished ahead of Nico Hülkenberg both times.
That's no mean feat.
That is no mean feat. That's exactly right.
I like these because you're judging these against the same equipment.
Right.
So there's no,
exactly.
I mean, you can argue that, well, he had the upgrade, I didn't. But, the point is they're racing the same racing car, and that is motor racing at a fact. That's just the way it's the only way to judge it.
Yep. Franco Colapinto, although he started 9 races to his predecessor's 14, Colapinto spent 11 more laps ahead of the other Williams than Logan Sargent did. Ooh. Yeah, not good.
Wow.
We'll get to Logan Sargent in a minute. Zhou Guan Yu, you said that one. He finished 17 times ahead of every driver. Liam Lawson, the only part-time driver to make a double-digit gain during a Grand Prix.
Austin.
Lawson. That's right.
Yep.
Austin, you already talked about it. Valtteri Bottas was the only driver to enter every race yet failed to score a point. That was an obvious one, and that's a shame. Logan Sargent never once out-qualified his teammate, repeating this dubious distinction that he had from 2023 also. Finished his career there, never out-qualifying his teammate.
The good thing for Bottas is he's rejoining a team and a team manager who's Austrian, so the mullet is in again. Even though he's cut it off for charity. Have you heard this? He's been selling his hair.
Yes.
He's been selling his hair and cut the mullet off, but it's going to come back because he's joining Toto, who's Austrian. And a mullet is kind of like if you go to a bar in Austria.
It's almost mandatory.
It is. You kind of need a mullet and a jean jacket.
Tell the story about what, not the story, the news really, about what he said about Cadillac.
Yeah, he is. Basically, he has. I mean, he's actually been making some big news quietly, as it were. While the other headlines are going on, Bottas has rejoined Mercedes, a popular result because they have got a rookie in here. So he is now Antonelli's boy, but he's also going to be a good mate, I'm sure, with George Russell, who he could probably learn from, given that he's been away from Mercedes.
Yeah.
And I think that relationship will be good. He's an open guy. I think at a data meeting, he's not going to sit there and go, well, I'm not going to tell him what to do. He's going to go to corner 8 and say, mate, you're turning in too quick or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's going to be a huge resource for Antonelli. No question about it. And I think that's the whole point. And were Antonelli not to perform and sling it in the parabolic as he did in his first test, but you never know. He's ready to go. But more importantly, that's the news you want me to tell you, is that he's now said, I'm ready for 2026 and Cadillac.
Yeah, and what he said was, he was actually, he said, I've known Graham Loudon, the new team principal for Cadillac.
Yep.
He says, there's preliminary talks, he says, with Graham Loudon. He says, I've known Graham for a long time.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah. And he says, I would guess they need experience because they have a lot of work to do. Cadillac would be one option for me. And so, yeah, he's not shy about going after that.
You heard it first. What date is it today?
22nd.
22nd of December, 2024. Cadillac's lineup will be Colton Herta and Valtteri Bottas.
Hey, It's actually a fairly safe bet, but I like it. I like it.
In this market, I'm not so sure.
All right, there was one last driver who drove in 2024, and that was Jack Doohan. We're not even going to give a stat. He only started one race, so it's not even worth.
Listen, when you're the son of Mick Doohan, you're half a legend when you were born. He's now just got to complete the rest of it.
Yeah. All right, with that, we need to take another quick break, and we'll be back right after these messages. That was fun, right?
Yeah, it was really good.
All right. Hey, guys.
Even getting you out of order was funny.
Yeah. Kevin Kelly
Ruined
last
Christmas.
week. Kevin Kelly last week texted me after the show and was like, "Hey, man, you didn't even put that calendar link in the show.
So it's your fault they didn't sell.
Well, yeah. And so I texted it to him, and I think he got one. But come on, guys, this calendar is so cool. And I know I'm beating this dead horse, but this guy was such a good guy, and the calendar is so cool. So I just put the link in YouTube. So you still got plenty of time before 2025. So order up a calendar. It'll probably get there about the time January rolls around. And what was it, Kevin? Put it in the link. I think it was. Kevin, you got yours. So how is it? You love it? You like it? Am I exaggerating? But I think it was including shipping, $39, something like that. So, and man, you got yours fast, Kevin. That's cool.
What's the name of the company?
It's called, the website is Saison73, SAISON73.com.
Saison73.
Yep.
Okay.
And Wesman44 says, Botas showed his butt most of the trip. Yeah, that's true.
Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
So Jonathan's Labrador is in the studio. He's got the headphones on, listening to the dog. His tail's wagging. I don't know if he thinks that's... Anyway. Okay, we got a couple more things that we want to touch on here. And I think we've saved 2025 discussion for the last segment of the last show of 2024. And the discussion is, which team has the strongest lineup for 2025?
McLaren.
Okay. I've been saying that for a while, but now we happen to have Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
It is a very tough one. And, first of all, Max tips the scales pretty hard all by himself. And if Liam Lawson, where would he have to finish to make you say they've got the best driver pairing?
Second.
Okay.
I honestly do believe he can do that next year.
He's clearly going to have a good car. Right?
I really do. And it honestly depends on the car, because as we saw at the end of this season, the Red Bull is top 6. It's not top 2. So it's going to be tough.
That's true.
And it might not go Max's way in terms of the development. But I do think that Lawson is capable of partnering. I mean, there's no question that Lawson's approach to it was fun. Lauren Meckies, actually, of RB, said what Lawson needs to do is forget what Verstappen is doing and how he's doing it.
Just go race his own race.
Just go race and support Max at every juncture. And that is
try to measure yourself against his every race.
Absolutely. And by the way, as a rookie, that's what you should do. You're not getting the big bucks. You're not getting paid $50 million to come and make a splash. You're getting paid probably a lot less. Well, he's definitely getting paid a lot less than Checo. And he just needs to do way better than Checo. And I think if all goes according to plan and we see him race the way he raced for RB, VCARB, whoever they are, the Racing Bulls. But I honestly think they can go back to being first and second in the championship, constructors championship.
Yeah, and you know what? I haven't spent as much time with Lawson as you, but I feel like that's no problem. That he can have the attitude. Whether he can actually get second is not so easy.
I predict Lawson will win races next year.
That's big right there for sure. Okay, so we're trying to decide who has you. Are you sticking with McLaren, or did you just blurt that and say?
No, yes, I am actually.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't. I think Lewis will take time to. I said this on a previous show. Lewis is in a really interesting situation. No changes in the rules. 25. This is the best Ferrari potentially he's going to drive, because who knows what's happening in 26.
Right. 26. That's true.
And he's getting older. So this could be his best hope. Or do we look at it differently and think, okay, the 26 rules will level everything out and blah, blah, blah. But then Aston Martin get their first Newey car in 26. So does that bring Alonso back into the picture? Who knows? No, I'm sticking with my selection. Yeah, Piastri and Lando. I think they proved it this year.
Okay, let me ask you a question that's going to affect this entire discussion. Is that what do you think about car development between now and the start of next year and through next year, actually? Because in other words, we went through such a seismic change happened after about Miami of 2024 in May, right? So we went through that seismic change where, Red Bull was either slowed down, really, McLaren caught him and so did everybody else almost. And so do we think that that's going to continue? Do you think that
it kind of does have it has to. I mean, think about what Haas earned for getting sixth, right?
Yes. But do you think it's going to continue? Is it across the board, or you think someone's going to be ahead of someone else? You think Red Bull's going to all of a sudden?
I think the big teams will be working on the 26 car during the 25 season. So Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Red Bull. But I think a team like Haas will be bringing bits and bobs, as they did this year, to each and every race because of the lack of testing. Because that's how they did it this year, and that's how Williams did it this year, and that's how the other teams did it this year to stay in the hunt. You can't drop the ball. It's a moving target, as we always say. You cannot drop the ball. And just because it's we haven't changed the rules season for 25, you don't think that people are sat on their laurels right now in the pub in England doing nothing. No, they're scheming. They're scheming hard on what to bring to Bahrain and the test and the first round in Australia, which, by the way, is a real challenge. We haven't really talked about this. First race is Australia. It's the hardest one in the world.
Yeah.
You've got to basically go the other side of the world with something you don't actually believe in yet.
Yeah, it's great, actually.
And then you go to China, blah, blah, blah.
All right, well, I'm going to run down what I think my full grid, and then I'll let you do the same.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to agree with you on McLaren, right? With Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. I'm going to go, as a pairing, I'm going to go Ferrari, and then Red Bull, then
Red Bull.
Yeah. I'm going to go Ferrari, Red Bull third with Lawson. Not that I don't believe in Lawson,
No.
But obviously, this is going to be so tight, just like it was this year, right? We don't know. And then after that, I'm going to go. Man, this is one where I struggled, but driver pairing is the category here, right?
Yep.
And now I have to caveat it. Are we going to say points? I'm just going to go with my gut, and I'm going to say driver pairing is Sainz and Albon after that. Just as far as driver skill.
Because I was just about to fit them into my list.
And then after that, I'm going to go. Oh gosh, I'll probably have to go with Aston Martin with Alonso.
All right,
and the other guy.
I'm going with my heart, my head, and my heart here. But I'll stick with my McLaren as the best pairing, Piastri and Norris.
Yep.
Second best pairing, Leclerc and Hamilton. Third best pairing, Max and Lawson. Equal with Sainz and Albon.
Okay. All right. Well, let's keep going.
You know who I would like to go through next?
Who?
Haas.
Yeah. Yeah. Ocon and Behrman.
Yeah.
I mean,
damn good.
Because if we don't know, we know Behrman did great, but we don't have enough really. He doesn't have enough time under his belt yet. But
and I tell you what, Gasly doing might be pretty potent too.
Yeah. Yep.
And I tell you what, if they advance the Aston Martin and find that magic that they found at the beginning of last year, because Lance, judge him as you will, Lance has never been far off Alonso, and Alonso hasn't lost any pace.
All right. Well, we've literally run out of time. I'm going to place at the bottom of the stack. I'm going to place Tsunoda and Hajara, and I don't. That's no dig on anybody. Hulkenberg and Bortoletto, that maybe, but that's where mine ends up. What about you? Bottom of the
Yeah,
stack.
I think I'm afraid. Yeah, I think I'm with you here. I think the racing
Feel free
bulls
to disagree, but
yeah, because Hulkenberg's going to be strong. I mean,
Yep.
he's not going to score lots of points. He's going to do no more than Bottas did. But that is a pretty weak pairing and a weak team, given what you asked me before, which is will they move forward? Sauber are in a very different position. Unless they can kind of get some expert help from Audi in the background, I just don't see it.
yeah. Well, I just checked YouTube. Thanks, everybody, guys. I just want to thank for
Merry Christmas.
another great year. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate, whenever you celebrate. We're going to be off the grid. Jonathan's going to be off the grid and off the continent, headed down to New Zealand for the Toyota Racing Series. Going to be giving us.
And by the
reports.
way, tune in. It's going to be good.
And Bob Varsha. Bob Varsha's
will
going to
be
be
that.
Bob's going to be with me on the Sunday night show. Going to continue the Sunday night show starting up in January and same time, 5:00 Central Time, every Sunday night until Formula One starts up. But thanks, everybody. Thanks, Casey. Appreciate the fantastic year you did. And we will talk to everybody next year.
Happy trails.